Consett, Ironworks, Black Hill, Shotley Bridge, Ebchester, Rowlands Gill, Swalwell, Bladen, and back again, up to back up the valley to the
back before the days of health and safety.
Ebchester, Rowlands Gill,
Dad was a loco driver back in Shotley.
To back up the valley to
On the
the
daily run to the coke works at Winlayton.
Ebchester, Rowlands Gill,
Space in the cab for 5-year-old me. We take the Derwent Valley Railway down the line.
It was a real pit village. Everybody knew everybody, and you looked after each other. If somebody was hurt in the pit, everybody gathered round and helped them. If somebody was ill and couldn't work, all the neighbours helped. And if you had the broth pan on, was the washing bowl that you used full of broth. And it was an old couple, old folk living next door, you took a basin into them, you shared it.
I mean, we didn't have very much money, I can remember, and it may seem strange, but sort of, you never ever got a whole apple to yourself. You got half an apple, you had to share it with your brother, but, you know, that was just the way life was.
I mean, the wages were terribly low, and the 26 strike, I know that the grocer who allowed an awful lot of tick had a book full of debts when he died. He never paid, but he couldn't bear to see the children hungry.
Let these iron rails carry my soul, up this river of memory I call home.
We played and roamed round all the fields, and, you know, everywhere was your playground, really. And it was just a quiet little village, you know. We played, you know, just all around the doors, over in the woods. We used to roam as far as down as the crossroads and up as far as Ebchester. We played an awful lot on the railway line, which wasn't good.
It was wonderful. You were just out all the time. You played up on the line, way before the, you know, after the railway was built. Yeah. Blackhall Mill in the river, along Hamsterley when they knocked the pit down, we played there. And just out all day. You were never in. You know, it was lovely.
Childhood was great. Roaming the fields, doing things that kids did in them days. Rode on bikes, played bass, went in people's gardens and helped ourselves to the apples. Played knocking 9 doors.
Along the oak-filled landscapes of my mind.
I lived in the house behind us, 23 Langdale Terrace, the house on the end. And we used to think it was because it was bigger than everybody else's, because we had an extra room. But they weren't that big, really, do you know what I mean? But when you're little, you think they are.
Down the line, along the oak-filled landscapes of my mind.
It wasn't too big of a place. We lived in Prospect Terrace, which was on the front. There was Jubilee Terrace behind and another one behind. On the opposite side, you had what we called the cements. You had the pit manager's house. Further along at Hamsterley was the co-op.
There were 3 houses there, they were called hopper houses. And right at the end of Stone Road, the top, was the police stables, then the colliery offices. Opposite where the post office is now, there was 2 layers of allotments, and the field where the police went for the holidays. The end of that is a row of houses, little one up, one down, a stone row, and it went so far up, and it was a very wide, open piece in front. and at the bottom is the way that came. There's a photograph somewhere of that coming out of the pit, and the coal went up the bank, as we called it, up to as far as the railway line to the screens. And young boys leaving school always worked on the screens. The good stuff went into trucks and was hauled along. We had a little tank engine to the LAR line and taken down for sale on the time.
We're looking at the shunting engine, the main transport in the yard for shifting trucks. We called it the tanky. The coal comes out the pit, goes through the screens and onto the screens. It goes into the trucks. The trucks are weighed and they're formed up in the train, and then they're handed over to the North Eastern Railway, and they usually take them on to different places for putting them on the boat. And that's the top of all of it, the tanky, the main man on the yard.
Jam sandwich and a bottle of cold tea.
Chester rolling skill.
Climb on with my shovel and where I 5 feet.
Back up the valley to the
Up and down the line till it got dark.
Chester rolling skill.
And back to the furnace of the steel works.
And it was, my dad at the time was the only person who lived in the village who really wasn't a miner. He was a barber, and he used the wooden hut as a barber's shop, but we also used it as a house. So during the day, when my dad had it opened up as a barber's shop, my mum and me and my 2 brothers went down to my granddad's house down at Milkwell Burn, and they stayed there through the day. And then at night time, when the shop closed, my mum brought us up, and they put camp beds down and they got the little gas stove out, and that was where they lived. But because I was born in the October of 1949, as a very young baby, it must have been quite a cold winter, and I caught pneumonia, and I was, very seriously ill. And I think at the time, because of that, we were put on an emergency housing list. So we got one of the first prefabs that were built at the time.
Now the years have gone away. The rails were all lifted 50 years ago.
I went to Hamsterley School. It was a very old, what was called a board school. My father went there when they first came over, and he went there, and they paid a penny a week to go to the school. And it was Mrs. Mathewson was ahead. Oh, Mrs. Chater. The school itself was, one of these with glass partitions between classrooms and things, and it had no hot water. The caretaker used to complain bitterly. She had no hot water to wash the steps or anything, and great big black fireplaces to keep going all day long.
You're all right.
Just getting a cane for talking. I was the quietest person ever, and I was always getting a cane for talking. I don't know how, I can't believe that, really.
The store at Westwood was very, very similar to this. As was said, they're probably all in a similar layout. Yeah. But it was much bigger. It was a big square, and you literally queued all around. I mean, I don't know, nothing happened in the bit in the middle, but it was absolutely huge. But everyone queued all the way around the outside of the square until it was your turn to be served. And as you see, the goods were all out on display like this.
Because it was the hub. Everybody.
It was. You saw everybody there.
You bought everything there, and you did it pretty much every day. You'd do a shop every day. So.
And as you say, the sugar was always in the blue bags. It's like quite a heavy paper, if I recall. It's like a cardboardy paper. It wasn't thin paper. It was quite sturdy.
No, it is. Yeah. I don't know if this is. I don't know if that's the way you remember it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I've carried a few of them home in my time. Should have muscles.
Oh, it was like a long round thing, and you put the money in, and it's in like a chute, and it went up into the office. and they put the change in, then it come back down out of the, like a opening.
I used to go to the stores, the co-op, and I used to pick a couple of things out that I wanted to buy for Christmas things, and this girl would put them away for me, and when I got my pocket money, I would go and pay it off, these things that I'd put away for presents.
Up and down the line till it got dark.
Chester, Rollins, Gill, and
Back
Swalwell
to the furnace of the steelwork. We'd take the Derwent Valley Railway down the line.
When I think about it, the men were all right. They had a social club and institute, which is now a cafe or a restaurant or something. But the women had nothing. You always were there for the children. I mean, the first time my mother went out and left us with my father, I think he nearly had a fit. He just sat in his chair and said, "It's bedtime, you better go." You know, men just didn't look after the children like they do now and take them places. We were lucky. We always got a holiday. We'd go to Tynemouth for 2 weeks in the summer.
when I'm on a train, Chester, Rollins, Gill, and I find myself dozing off again.
When I was growing up in Hamsterley, my grandma lived at Low Westwood, and my grandma used to organise the trips, as we called them, to Blackpool. She used to get the coaches from Epchester, which were Armstrong coaches, and we all used to troop off in these coaches and all go to Blackpool for our holidays.
Dad smiling down at 5-year-old me.
As I got older, I used to sing. I used to be in a choir at concert. So when we were in, like, we called them the digs. And I can remember sort of somebody asking us to get up and sing. And I can remember doing it. And I must have been 15, 16 at the time.
Along the oak-filled landscapes of my mind,
The church hall, well, it was used for the Sunday school on a Sunday and any other church meetings that needed it. It also, for dances, had a lovely sprung floor. It was good for dancing. And it had a ballroom, and then it had what we called the supper room and the kitchen and toilets. It was very nice. But just after the war, I think it was, somebody didn't like it and set fire to it and burnt it down. So, you know, it was a very useful hall, but it was gone.
Stations disappear. Cyclists and dog walkers share the journey home along the iron road. Lately, when I'm on a train, Chester, Rollins, Gill, and I find myself dozing off again. Back up the valley,
My mind takes me back to the Cokeworths at Winlayton.
Chester, Rollins, Gill, my
Dad smiling down at 5-year-old me. We'd take the Derwent Valley Railway down the line, down the line,
along the oak-filled landscapes of my mind. Let these iron rails carry my soul, up this river of memory I call home.
Happy days. Happy days they were, yes. Just a wonderful idyllic childhood, really, you know. Things weren't easy. My parents didn't have a lot of money. But we were well fed and well clothed, and that was that was how we were, yes.